So I don't know if you guys know this, and by guys I mean Derek, John, and Steve, but today is a very special anniversary for not just one thing, but two Nintendo things. Do you know what they are?
Is one of them 1-2 Switch?
There you go, John. That is it. Nintendo Switch on 1-2 Switch,
course.
baby. That's right.
Game of the year.
No, so today is the second anniversary of Nintendo Switch and Breath of the Wild. So I thought it'd be fun for us to get together and just give our, just talk about the state of the Switch, our general thoughts about the platform so far, our retrospective thoughts on Breath of the Wild, because I think both John and myself have been replaying it recently. And yeah, just kind of talk about, where we think the Switch is going and how it's all shaping up. So I guess let's get a gut check from you guys. How are you feeling about the Switch at this point in time? It's 2 years old. It's entering the terrible twos. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling pretty good, honestly. It has a heck of a lineup. It's doing extremely well for Nintendo. And 2019 is looking pretty bright, so things are pretty awesome right now, I gotta say.
Yeah, and coming off the Wii U, both the first-party and third-party output has been awesome. And it's really cool to have a handheld that's just so flexible. Especially for us, because when we're recording on a 3DS, it's so awkward, because you're hunched over your desk, it's just uncomfortable the entire time, and it's just so neat to be able to just record from a console, and then just whenever you want to play naturally, just take it out and be a handheld. I love the Switch's main gimmick, and it still works so well 2 years later.
When it came out, it felt like this magical device. How am I holding something this small that looks better than my Wii U, which was a brick? And still, 2 years later, I'm amazed by some of the games I play on this thing. It's just gorgeous. I mean, and even 2 years on, Breath of the Wild still looks fantastic. I was playing it just this afternoon. It is still breathtaking.
Well played.
That was not on purpose.
Well, it should have been, Steve, so.
Shame on me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I pretty much agree. As you said, Steve, it was it was and is a magical system. I will say, though, we're at the point now in its lifespan where I think for its first anniversary, I was still feeling the magic, but now, the honeymoon's kind of over, and I definitely still appreciate it for what it is, but I also kind of, take it for granted, too. It's at the point now where I just expect it. I just expect to be able to take my games and my system with me anywhere easily, and I can't really imagine going back to not having that.
I guess, though, because the Switch is so flexible, it's great that it has all these legacy titles, all these ports, and I'm looking at my home screen at the moment, and Final Fantasy IX is on there. It's crazy, though. We're in 2019, and these PlayStation classics are available on a Nintendo platform. And if you've not played these games before, they are beefy. You can lose a lot of time to these. And it's just nuts that Nintendo finally have these. And of course, there's games like Dark Souls and Skyrim. There are so many just amazing games you can finally play, not only on a Nintendo platform, but one that you can take anywhere. This console is just nuts.
It really is. I've gotten so many games, indies, third parties, Nintendo stuff. It's a nice range, and I think that's one of the things that makes the Switch so attractive is because, usually you get Nintendo consoles for the Nintendo games. There's occasionally some really good third-party exclusive stuff, but for the most part, you're there for the Nintendo games, and that's not the case for the Switch. Nintendo stuff is still great. The fact that you guys are still playing Zelda is tantamount to that, and we got of course, Mario Odyssey and Smash, as you guys were saying. There are some really great titles on here, and it says something that you're still hungry for the next one, Andre, that you want to see what they put out next, and I think you're going to find that this year because they do have quite the lineup between, and probably not Yoshi for you, but yeah, Animal Crossing, Astral Chain, we finally got to see Pokemon Sword and Shield. There's some really good stuff coming, and I can't wait to see what else they have. Heck, we got a remake of Link's Awakening coming. That's awesome.
It's so weird, every time I think of Link's Awakening, I always treat it as a 3DS game, even though it's definitely not and doesn't look like one. But it's weird that we're getting a new 2D game, a new 2D Zelda on a console at this point, and I love that it's on Switch. It's just that it's so different from how Nintendo's been treating a lot of the properties that I just, for whatever reason, I keep thinking it's a 3DS game.
It's like the Switch is getting both console and handheld kind of games. Even Pokemon Sword and Shield has those aspects of being a handheld-orientated game. Right. So it's great that we're getting both 3DS-style software as well as Wii U-style software, just sort of all in one, just one console.
That's a great point. They're finally delivering what the promise kind of was of the Switch, of that it was going to, be. It seemed like it was going to be a hybrid system. And up until recently, it's been mostly console-focused experiences from Nintendo, at least. So it is nice that we may finally be reaping the fruits of the fact that the 3DS's time is kind of over, and they are moving development to the Switch in general, which is something I think they've needed to do. So it's nice that it's finally coming to fruition.
I couldn't agree more. It feels like, especially with Sword and Shield being announced for the Switch exclusively, it does feel like the 3DS is kind of on its way out, which I think the writing has been on the wall for that for a long time, but it's almost like a soft confirmation at this point.
And it's a funny thing, too, because you're almost kind of hoping for the death of the 3DS, which is a weird thing to say because it's a great console. I mean, not even a console, great handheld, great system. But you still want it to go away because you can see so much potential on the Switch, and we've all migrated to the Switch, and it's like, okay, 3DS, I love you, but I want to see your games on the Switch instead, so please go away. just leave. Right. It's like that lamb, that goat that goes in front of Homer and just pushes it away. Nintendo really has just done so well, because it felt a little shaky when it launched in 2017. Like, we had Zelda, and we had some other games in there, but it was like, these are okay. But then they just started, I don't know where the momentum came from. It's just like, you know what? I have the Switch, I can take it anywhere. I'm going to pick up this game. Oh, I'm going to pick up this game. Oh, I'll take this too. And it just, your libraries just grew so fast with the Switch, and then they started putting out their own stuff that that you were into and wanted to check out, and all of a sudden you're like, why, man, I need to get a bigger mini SD card because I'm running out of space. It really is impressive. I can't even describe it, how they were able to just take the launch, and it was a good launch, but they just kept the momentum, and that's something Nintendo hasn't been able to do for a long time. I can't even think of the last time they were able to do that.
It was a weird launch, because it launched with 5 games. There was 1-2 Switch, Breath of the Wild, Bomberman, Just Dance, and that was more or less it. I think Fast RMX was on the eShop, and Snipper Clips. But in general, it was a really, really small launch, but then they slowly just sort of winded out and gave us Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Golf Story, and I think Switch owners have sort of been groomed into accepting the indie culture too. If you look at indie sales, pretty much every major indie game has sold the most on Switch by quite a significant margin. Even Enter the Gungeon, I believe they said they sold 1 million of their 2 million units on Switch, and that was primarily out as a PC game for a couple of years before the Switch release. So it's just nuts how the indie community is just thriving on the Switch, whereas on other platforms it seems like they just don't really care.
I think it's a flexibility, the fact that you can take the Switch wherever you want, so you don't feel like... Because I think oftentimes, if you bought... I think it's an easier sell to play a game like Stardew Valley when you know you can play it anywhere, as opposed to when you can only play it at home.
I think it's also really worth mentioning that the simplistic nature of most indie games lends itself really well to the handheld model that the Switch has. I mean, you look at games like, for instance, Enter the Gungeon, and they're relatively simplistic graphics, but that works really well in handheld mode. It's something that people are subconsciously more forgiving of because of the fact that it's in the palm of their hand versus, they're not playing it on a $2,200 PC connected to a huge TV.
Also, Nintendo embrace indies as a key part of their portfolio. Hollow Knight was in their E3 showcase. They are saying this game is as equal as all these other games that we're showing today. And Hollow Knight is so good. I love Hollow Knight. And I know people are upset that we don't really talk about it, or we didn't even cover it. But when that sequel comes out, because the sequel has been announced for later this year, when that comes out, we are covering that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I was just playing Hollow Knight today too, and thinking to myself, man, this is such a amazing game. It's incredibly well polished, and it's one of the most beautiful indie titles out there.
Oh yeah.
Well, and we also got a fantastic original RPG from Square Enix. They're not just, of course we're getting those Final Fantasy ports, we're getting Dragon Quest XI on the Switch, which is amazing in and of itself, but we got Octopath Traveler, an original RPG from them, which looks like nothing else on any other system, and it sold gangbusters. It really did well. It was a highlight of the system, and I think Square Enix was probably surprised how well it did, to the point they were like, okay, let's start putting everything we can on the Switch. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think a lot of publishers were surprised, because when the Switch first came out, there weren't a whole lot of big third-party publishers behind it. but then gradually more and more came out of the ground. Like, even Capcom, they came out with Ultra Street Fighter 2, which felt like a test, and I think we succeeded in that test, because then we got the Street Fighter 30th anniversary, and now they're selling Resident Evil 4 for $30, which, you know, that's a debate within itself. But the fact we're getting Resident Evil 4 on a portable console, my heart just cannot contain how excited I am for that.
The mobile version didn't quite do it for you, John?
Not quite.
Maybe a bad thing about the Switch is it's just way too easy to spend all your money on games on that platform. With how portable and convenient it is to play anywhere, it does feel like more of an investment on the Switch than it did before on other platforms. Like, there's not just something for everyone, there's a ton of stuff for everyone, it seems, on the Switch.
And speaking about everyone, isn't it nuts that Nintendo allow crossplay?
Right?
Yeah, when Sony doesn't.
Exactly, yeah. So Sony aren't allowing it, but Nintendo are kind of ahead of the curve in that sense. Like, in that one sense, they are ahead of the curve, which is kind of nuts. Like some of the biggest games out there, like Minecraft and Rocket League, they allow crossplay on Switch, whereas on PlayStation 4, you're just secluded to yourself. And yeah, that's just something I didn't see coming.
Well, speaking of crossplay, that kind of dovetails nicely, I suppose, into Nintendo Switch Online, which I think is also something a lot of people maybe didn't see coming, at least in the form that it did. Where, yeah, Nintendo finally launched recently launched their paid online subscription service, and it seems to be pretty divisive. Actually, not really. It seems like most people just straight up hate it. Up until maybe recently, where it had some positive buzz because of Tetris 99, which might legitimately be the best Battle Royale game that's ever been produced, because it is fantastic. So I guess, how are you guys feeling about Nintendo Switch Online at this point in time, and what are you kind of hoping from it as we move into the Switch's third year?
I'm going to make a big statement. I think Tetris 99 is a top 5 Switch game. I think that game is genius. It's so fun. I've put 30 hours into it. I think it's just so it's so addicting.
It's been out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know, right? Basically, what I've been doing is I've been editing like some audio for several analyses. So when I take breaks, I just play around with Tetris 99 and it just keeps racking up. And my fiance is really into this game too, so we've just been playing it non-stop. But it's just such a fun game, and I think it justifies the price of Switch Online just in itself. NES games, not so much. Like they're all right, but Tetris 99 is just such a fresh game, and it's genius. Like it makes so much sense to mix these two ideas together, but no one really thought of it before.
Yeah, I mean, I was just shocked how much fun I was having, and it's so easy to just go one more game. Let me try again, one more game, because you just want to hit that number one, and it really is just that addictive quality to it. And I mean, there's some good online experiences. Of course, people are still playing Splatoon 2, people are playing Smash Online, all that. But I think Nintendo is definitely going to be trying to strengthen their online profile this year. It feels like that's what they really want to do. Animal Crossing might be a good way to do that. Pokemon might be a good way to do it, because they certainly didn't do it with Let's Go, so let's hope they do it with Sword and Shield. But yeah, I think that might be a big focus of Nintendo this year, is just trying to make the Switch Online a little bit more attractive to people. But Tetris 99 was a good first step. Like I said, Tetris Attack 99. That's what we need next.
That'd be amazing.
I'm going to say this, though. I think Tetris 99 is a fantastic distraction from how bad Nintendo Switch Online is. It's great. Other people, PSN, Xbox Live, give out free games, and that's a really cool added value to their respective services. Making a new game and making it exclusive to your online service is kind of a power move on Nintendo's part. I don't think anybody's ever done that before. But it doesn't change the fact that there are major fundamental problems with Nintendo Switch Online. It makes it worth the $20 for this year, but after everybody has kind of played their fill of Tetris 99, and I'm sure it will have a community years from now, but the newness will wear off. The honeymoon stage, as you mentioned before, in regards to the Switch itself, will be over, and people will just see that as part of what they get with their $20. So I think like you said, Andre, we're still waiting for that Nintendo Switch Online killer app, and I do agree that Animal Crossing or Pokemon are the two franchises that are the most ripe to prove that we're getting our money's worth with this subscription, because as everyone else said, the NES games just don't do it. And frankly, if they do eventually add the SNES games that data miners found that are gone now, by the way, I don't think that will do a whole lot to make people want to pony up for this service. So we will need to see something big, and I agree that Animal Crossing is probably the make it or break it moment for the service this year.
True. I also don't think Tetris 99 is their only exclusive game that they're doing. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get like Dr. Mario 99 or Bomberman 99.
Oh, Mario Kart 99.
Bomberman 99. Yeah.
Oh God, Mario Kart 99.
That is a scary thought. I can't hate 98 people at the same time with equal intensity.
Oh, you'll find a way with this one, I'm sure. Actually, you know what would do it? Mario Party 99.
Oh wow.
Oh boy.
But I do think there's going to be more exclusive games to this service. Like, take Mario vs. Donkey Kong. I think that's an easy game to make exclusive to the service. Or just anything that has some kind of online component. I think you can sort of make free for this online subscription. It doesn't just have to be online enabled games.
So are you saying we should expect a free-to-play Animal Crossing game where you have to pay real money for everything else, like outfits or furniture?
Oh God, you really will owe your soul
Animal
to
Crossing
Tom Nook.
Pocket Camp 99?
Yeah, so, I mean, Nintendo definitely has a long way to go in making Nintendo Switch Online look like a compelling service, but it seems like they are taking the steps necessary, maybe, to get there. We'll see. So we'll have to revisit this before year 3, even. But, yeah. Now, what else I'm curious about from you guys, real quick, is moving forward for the Switch. There's been some rumblings of another Nintendo Switch coming, another version of Nintendo Switch coming this year. What are your expectations and hopes for that? Do you think Nintendo needs it this year? And what do you think they need to do with it, if so?
Oh boy.
I think they do need it. So right now we've said that 3DS is dead at the moment, and no console currently occupies that space. And that's a problem, I think. I think we need something to get the kids into gaming, because otherwise it's quite an investment. And especially with Animal Crossing and Pokemon coming this year, I think now's the time to get a cheap Switch out the window. Switch momentum's good at the moment, but it could be even better if you broaden your appeal to more audiences. Even the 2DS did well. So I think now's probably the time for either a mini Switch or just a light Switch, like a cheaper one.
So my hopes and my expectations are completely different. My hope, and to be clear, I used to think this was going to happen. Now I firmly don't believe we're going to get this year. But my hope was that we would get a updated, more powerful Switch. Especially since we know already that Microsoft and Sony are planning their next generation offerings for next year. So I was hoping Nintendo would jump out in front of that and offer a beefier Switch for, a little more or even the same amount of money. But my expectations are that, like John said, we're getting a more kid-friendly, cheaper Switch. What that entails, I don't know, but I would assume no removable Joy-Cons or something like that. Something to really lower the cost of the overall package because, as he mentioned, we've got Animal Crossing and Pokemon, which are two very popular franchises with younger players, and not having a more affordable Switch for parents to purchase alongside those games, which kids will absolutely be asking for in droves, would be a short-sighted decision.
I would love if the trailer for this Switch that has no Joy-Cons is just like you have the Switch logo at the beginning, but there's no snap. It's just like a static picture.
Yeah, just as the logo being taken away, showing its handheld nature. But no, I just have to echo Steve and John because, again, Animal Crossing, Pokemon, two very well-known handheld games. You want to have that cheaper point of entry, especially for Pokemon, to get as many people buying Pokemon as they can. And Let's Go did well as a console-focused experience, but with a brand new generation, you're going to want to grab as many people as possible, get that install base out, and this is the perfect opportunity to do it. So it would not shock me if at E3 we got the reveal of a handheld version of the Switch. I see where you're coming from about maybe wanting a more powerful Switch, Steve, but as you said, it's definitely not happening this year, and I think it makes more sense to be next year, just to be like, okay, well, here's
closer
theirs.
to the next generation.
Exactly, yeah. Just like, here's theirs, here's ours, cheaper and still portable.
I think that makes sense. I mean, I'm also with Steve that I personally prefer a more powerful system. But I think the Switch is I'm still impressed by what the Switch can do, especially with some of the third-party ports. But at the same time, those third-party ports are also showing some of the limitations of the current Switch. So I would love for that to be broadened, moving forward. But yeah, I also expect some kind of like cheaper Switch this year. I just wonder how they're going to do it. Because my concern is if Nintendo compromises on the whole switching aspect, with it perhaps being handheld only, that could be a bit of a problem for the Switch. A bit of a branding issue, perhaps. People buying the cheaper version, not realizing they can't dock it if that were the case. I don't think Nintendo would go that route though. What I expect from them is I expect it to be a handheld, a smaller handheld version, focused version of the Switch. Without a dock, they'll still be dock compatible. Because Nintendo loves their accessory money, and I don't think they'll give up the chance of selling those docks for $100 each when they can't be costing more than $10 to make those.
Yeah, no joke. Those things are basically a USB hub in a box.
Right? Exactly. So I fully expect them to retain that. I just don't think it'll come with it. So they'll save on the cost of the dock itself, then make many times that back once people actually purchase a dock. So I think that'd be a smart way of going about it. I also hope that they retain the Joy-Con functionality because it is essential for some of those games. I can't imagine like the Joy-Cons being permanently part of the Switch, even though it would make sense from a durability standpoint. From a gameplay perspective, that would be a bit of a problem because there are many games out there that do require it, like Let's Go, and also Mario Party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
That's an interesting point you make, though, Andre, because I think about I can't envision a portable Switch or a kid Switch, whatever we want to call this, a Switch Lite, with detachable Joy-Con, because when you consider the cost of components, the Joy-Con are right up there as some of the most expensive things in the unit. So if you're looking for a place to cut corners, I mean, Joy-Con are almost the obvious choice, especially when you consider that doesn't stop Nintendo, again, lovers of accessory money, from selling you the additional Joy-Con that have the functions you need for those games. And it would be as simple for them as slapping a sticker on existing Mario Party cases that says, hey, if you have a Switch Mini, make sure to pick up some $75 Joy-Con. So I'm not sure. I think it could go either way, but I'll be honest, my money right now is on them removing Joy-Con functionality, or at least making physically attached Joy-Con on this thing to keep the cost of manufacture down.
Could be. We'll see. Do you think we'll find out at E3?
I don't think E3's the time to reveal a cheaper console. I think they'll probably just release a trailer randomly at some point.
It might be the whole July thing, like we saw with the 2DS. Just around that time, have it ready by September. There you go, right? Ready in time for Animal Crossing and Pokemon.
Right. I'm betting at E3 we get release dates for one or both. And I'm thinking that once they let those dominate the news cycle for long enough, we get news on this new Switch unit, like a few weeks or even a month or two down the line.
I think that makes sense. So, as I mentioned, this isn't just the Switch's anniversary, but also Breath of the Wild, which for many would consider to be one of the best games of all time. Genre-defining is one that is a term often thrown around when talking about the game. I've seen I've seen some articles recently from people revisiting the game, commenting on how it not only holds up, like it's still like superior to many games that have come out since many other open world games that still can't compete with what Breath of the Wild did. So myself, I gave the game famously to our audience, said I liked it a lot, and I still stand by that. But I have been revisiting it recently in Master Mode. For not any particular reason, I just wanted to. I think I was inspired by my dad, who's been replaying the game endlessly. And I've been enjoying it. The game is still fun. I'm having a great time with it, especially without the pressure of having a review to pump out in 10 days with it. So yeah, I still have my issues with the game, but I am just taken back by how much Nintendo did right on their first true open world outing. It's just a fun game to explore. There's been a lot of games, a lot of open world games, where it's just boring to go around the world. The world exists just as a barrier to your next point of interest. Whereas in Zelda, the world is a point of interest. Everywhere you go is a point of interest. And that's what's fun about it. It's fun just to go around and get sidetracked. In Master Mode even, as I'm playing, I turned off the HUD. So I have no map, I have no compass. I'm just going wherever, like whatever catches my wind or wherever catches my interest. So I know, John, you've been replaying it too recently. How have you been feeling, or how's it been feeling to you to go back to what's now a 2-year-old game?
I still love this game, man. And as you were saying just now, there's so many points of interest. It's like you'll climb up to the top of a mountain, and this is all you can see for a while, just this mountain. And you get to the top, and when you're at the top, all of a sudden you see another mountain in the distance. So you go over there, and then you see something else in the distance.
Yep.
And every single time you do this, you get a Korok seed, which I know is kind of a point of contention for Breath of the Wild. I kind of like them though. I think they're good rewards that sort of incentivize you to go places, but they're not the reason to go places. It's just like, oh, you did this, here you go. But you're not like seeking them out. That said, though, I have been seeking them out, and I am one Korok seed away from finishing this game 100%.
My God.
And today I finished my compendium. I have every picture in the game now, and it's just reminded me of how much I love this open world. Because typically, I'm not a huge open world fan. I think a lot of open worlds are just going following waypoints from point A to point B. But in Breath of the Wild, you decide where your point B is, and the point of the game is just being in this world. And it still works so well. And even though I've done every side quest, even though I've taken every picture, I still love just exploring and just taking in this like huge environment.
You brought up a good point real quick about the point A to point B, and I think that's something Zelda does different than a lot of open world games. Is usually, like, the HUD in Assassin's Creed is a disaster. Like, when you're checking your map, there's icons everywhere. Like, it lays out exactly where you need to go. Zelda doesn't do that. It'll tell you where the starting point is of a quest, but beyond that, everything's up to you. So you kind of have to figure out, like, where to go, and that's also what leads you to being able to be sidetracked, because you're not laser focused on, a dot on your map or on your HUD. You kind of have to forge your own path, and it's something that I really appreciate. It kind of makes you take in the world more as if it were a real thing, as opposed to just following waypoints.
Yeah, I definitely took my time with Zelda, just involved myself with the world. I haven't revisited it like you guys, but when I played it the first time, I did put on we turned off the HUD essentially, and just went about it and just searched everything I could find. I wanted to do all the side quests. I wanted to find all the shrines. I wanted to do all the extra stuff that I could. Screw the Korok seeds, though. I did never. As soon as I found out the reward and all that, then I got to a certain point. I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good about this, especially since you stopped getting rewards for having a certain amount of Korok seeds after a certain point. So yeah, it was just, it was just a really involving game, and I loved every moment of it. It kept me entertained throughout the entire time, and even the DLC was a lot of fun. Like you said, Andre, we had Master Mode now. We have that trial that was definitely tricky and a lot of fun to go through. We have the new story.
The
content.
Motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. The motorcycle with the new story content, which gave us a little bit of details and whatnot. Nothing too important or anything like that, but still fun little extras that expand upon the game and other improvements that I'm sure it feels like a completely different experience going back to it now compared to what it was like in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And the DLC did change quite a lot of the raw gameplay. Like, I wouldn't have found every Korok seed if it weren't for the Korok mask. I think I would have just walked past all these Koroks if it weren't for the mask shaking whenever they're nearby. That and the motorbike is just such a great way to get around, because it's sort of, with horses, they're kind of they're temporary, like weapons are. But with the motorbike, you can just keep going forever.
I still remember when I got the motorcycle, so I used it to, I hadn't found all the shrines by that point, so it was a great way to go around the world quickly and kind of, clean up the rest of them. And I stumbled across the one in that really dark forest where there's like no lights at all, it's pitch black. Except the developers clearly didn't account for me having a motorcycle with a giant headlamp on the front. So I could see straight through to the shrine right away. Like, oh, that was easy. But it kind of also just speaks to more the openness of Breath of the Wild. Like, it's a game where you can really do anything. Like, you can think of multiple ways of going about any given scenario. And that's what's fun about it. Like, you can experiment. It encourages you to try different things. That's part of the reason why the breakable weapons is kind of essential to the game, because it forces you to improvise. You have to think of other ways to attack enemies when your primary weapon breaks in your hands. It's like, oh crap, what do I do now? Yeah.
Yeah,
everything about this game is about improvisation. Like, deciding where you want to go is improvisation. Horses are improvisation, because sometimes you can't take them down a hill, so you have to leave them. Of course, weapons are improvisation. It's all a game just about, like, planning your own adventure. And, we're starting to see other open world games kind of take inspiration from it, but it's still going to be a while until we really see the next, Breath of the Wild kind of game.
Right, I mean, Breath of the Wild was in development for, 5 years, and we're only 2 years out from it now, so...
I have a hard time not fawning over this game, so I'm going to start out by saying Breath of the Wild is not perfect, even though I might make it sound like it is. It definitely has problems, the Korok seeds being my number one issue with the game, but it occupies a special place in my heart. Actually... John, were you around when Mario 64 came out? Like, were you actively playing games then? You're a baby.
Well, I was like maybe 1 year old, Steve. So,
so
yes,
you were actually a baby. So for me, Breath of the Wild kind of feels like Zelda's Mario 64 moment. And I know a lot of people are going to say, you're an idiot, that's Ocarina of Time. But for me, Mario 64 was the first 3D game of any kind that I ever saw, let alone played. And it blew my mind, and once I played it, I knew that this is what Mario will be forever. It'll be this for the rest of its life. Or for the rest of mine, anyway. Mario will probably still be saving the Mushroom Kingdom long after I'm gone. And while I love Ocarina of Time, and I agree with most people in that it's one of the best games ever made, I feel like Breath of the Wild has forever changed what Zelda will be, in my opinion, for the better. It's an amazing game.
For the new installments, specifically, because we do have Link's Awakening coming up.
Right. That kind of flies right in the face of what I'm saying.
No, I totally agree with you. I think when it comes at least to the 3D Zeldas, but I think they will maintain like the 2D, 3D separation, where we will get like games and maybe the more classic Link's Awakening style, if you will. But I think for the 3D ones, like the big main entries, absolutely. I think Breath of the Wild has completely changed how they're going to make these games moving forward. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. Like, I'm looking forward to what Nintendo themselves have learned since Breath of the Wild. Because in Breath of the Wild, there are a ton of great ideas. I just felt like it came a little short for me in some key areas for myself. Now, to give the game full credit, I don't think I've ever played a game this long and had this consistently this much fun playing it, like this consistently a great time for like hundreds of hours now. Like, it must be close to 500 if not past that by this point, or a few hundred at least. However, for me, the highest points of Breath of the Wild never reached like the highest points of my personal favorite games of all time. And that's what I'm kind of hoping they improve on with the next one. But I agree with you, Steve. Like, there's no going back at this point now. Breath of the Wild is a Zelda future.
Yeah, 100%.
I am wondering what people are going to think in a few years' time, though. Because, as Steve said, I was 1 year old when Mario 64 came out. But I played that game on Wii Virtual Console, and I was just enthralled by it. I love Mario 64, but even 10 years after it came out. And I do wonder if people are gonna still see Breath of the Wild in that same light. Like, if people who are born now playing Breath of the Wild in 10 years, are they still going to think this is a masterpiece in gaming? Mm-hmm. Or will it have been, taken over by then?
That's a really good question, and I think the answer is going to be when we see what Nintendo does next for their next mainline, big budget Zelda game. I think that'll answer a lot of those types of questions about Breath of the Wild.
Well, I guess the next Zelda game, though, is going back to the basics. It's going back to the Game Boy. So I guess, maybe Breath of the Wild isn't exactly the future. Like, maybe there's going to be a little balance between classic and this open air style.
Mm-hmm. I think we're all excited for the idea of what does Nintendo do for their Majora's Mask. We got our Ocarina of Time with Breath of the Wild. What are they going to do with Majora's Mask?
Yeah, some of those discarded Breath of the Wild concepts were definitely strange, and I'd love to see them implemented in an actual game.
You know what? Every second Zelda for every major new starting point of the series is kind of weird. Zelda 2, of course, the original Zelda 2 was very different from the first one. The sequel to Ocarina of Time, the first 3D Zelda, being Majora's Mask, is probably one of the weirdest games out there from Nintendo, period. And then now with Breath of the Wild starting off, which is basically a new type of Zelda, I wonder, this might be the time for it to get really weird. Maybe it's time for Zelda to go sci-fi or into space.
That is true.
I've got 2 titles, either Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Future, or The Legend of Zelda: Space Adventure.
Legend of Zelda X Star Fox.
There you go.
And I think that's our cue to wrap it up here. So do you guys have any final thoughts about the Switch or Breath of the Wild's 2-year anniversary?
It's a fantastic system and exactly the shot in the arm that Nintendo needed, and just seeing the output that they put out. And some of, people call Breath of the Wild genre defying. Mario Odyssey is one of the best Mario games in years. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a fantastic experience. Smash Ultimate is the best-selling and probably the best Smash game. Like, the fact that they're hitting all these highs on this one system, I think, is what makes it just such a brilliant piece of hardware, and why people have latched onto it so much.
Yeah, it's also, I don't usually play games as much as I have on the Switch. Like on the Wii U, I had a couple of games that went over the 100-hour mark. On the Switch, I have like 7 games that have gone over that mark. It's just so easy to pick up and play games, and I've never been so invested in just playing them. Like even on PlayStation 4, I've got a bunch of games, and none of them have come close to my Switch playtime. It's just so easy to play games on this system.
Yeah, the Switch went from being a system that everybody wanted every Nintendo game on to a system that everybody wanted every game on. You've got Final Fantasy, you've got people... It's no longer... Like, Switch port begging is just an accepted practice now. Whenever anybody announces anything, it's like, when is it coming to Switch? Not, is it coming? When is it coming? Everyone expects it, and for good reason. This is the system people have been dreaming about since the beginning of time. I mean, everybody has wanted a home console that you can throw in your bag and take with you wherever you go. From the minute they showed that goofy GameCube handle, people had this idea. So just to see this become a reality is amazing. It's honestly, at this point, probably my favorite console of all time. And I don't see how Nintendo will ever be able to back out of this strategy at this point.
And this year you might even get Xbox games on this system. So, like that thing you said about when is it coming to Switch, well, that even applies to other companies now, because we might even get like Halo and Ori and all these other Xbox games on the Switch.
That'd be pretty wild, right? that is, I mean, if those rumors end up being true, that would be nuts. These are exciting times, basically. These are exciting times. So I can't wait to see what ends up happening over the next year for the Switch when we revisit it in year 3 on this 3rd-year anniversary.
That should be fun. We'll have a lot more games to talk about if this year's this previews or anything to go by. That's for sure.
Isn't that the truth? All right, and with that, I think we're about done here. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to those in the description below. It's a good way to keep up to date on everything we post. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for tons more on Switch in its as we enter its 3rd year, and everything else Nintendo as well, including hopefully our Mario Maker analysis soon, if we can actually figure out how to render this thing. So we'll catch you later. Bye.